Every human being has a side they don't show. A side that thinks things they would never say out loud. A side that reacts in ways they don't fully understand. You've felt it before. A sudden flash of anger. A quiet moment of jealousy. A thought you quickly pushed away. Because it didn't match the person you believe you are. But here's the truth. That side of you is not random. It's part of your psychology. And ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. It just hides it. In this episode, we explore the dark side of human behavior, the hidden patterns that influence actions, decisions, and reactions. Not to judge them, but to understand them. Because when you understand your darker tendencies, you gain control over them. Every human being has two sides. The one they show to the world. And the one they keep hidden. The visible side is shaped by society, expectations, and identity. It's the version of you that tries to be accepted, respected, and understood. But beneath that surface, there is another layer. A quieter, less controlled side. The side that feels jealousy when others succeed. The side that reacts with anger before logic steps in. The side that sometimes thinks things you would never say out loud. This is what psychologists often refer to as the hidden self. And here's the truth most people avoid. Having a dark side does not make you a bad person. It makes you human. These thoughts and impulses are not random. They are part of your psychological makeup, shaped by evolution, past experiences, and emotional conditioning. But because they don't align with how you want to be seen, you suppress them. You ignore them. You pretend they're not there. And the more you ignore them, the less control you have over them. Because what is hidden does not disappear. It influences you from the background. In subtle ways. In reactions you don't fully understand. In decisions you later question. Understanding your dark side is not about embracing negativity. It's about becoming aware of it. Because awareness is the first step to control. To understand the dark side of human behavior, you must first understand the brain. Your brain was not designed for happiness. It was designed for survival. Thousands of years ago, survival depended on quick reactions to danger, competition for resources, and the ability to detect threats. These survival instincts are still active today. Even though the world has changed, your brain still operates with the same basic wiring. It is constantly scanning for risk. Comparing you to others. Protecting your position. This is where many so-called dark behaviors come from. Jealousy is rooted in comparison. Aggression is rooted in defense. Manipulation can stem from the desire to gain advantage. These behaviors are not random flaws. They are exaggerated versions of survival mechanisms. The problem is that in modern life, these instincts often activate in situations where they are not necessary. A simple disagreement can feel like a threat. Someone else's success can feel like your loss. Your brain reacts as if your survival is at stake. But it isn't. Understanding this changes how you see yourself. Instead of judging your reactions, you begin to recognize where they come from. And once you understand the source, you can begin to manage the response. Because your instincts may be automatic. But your actions don't have to be. Jealousy is one of the most common, and most misunderstood, aspects of human behavior. Most people don't like to admit they feel it. But almost everyone does. Jealousy often appears quietly. You see someone succeed, and instead of feeling inspired, something inside you tightens. A small voice begins to compare. What do they have that I don't? Why them and not me? This reaction is not a sign of weakness. It is a natural response rooted in comparison. Your brain is constantly evaluating your position relative to others. In the past, this helped humans compete for resources and status. But today, it often leads to dissatisfaction. Because there will always be someone who appears more successful, more confident, or more accomplished. The danger of jealousy is not the feeling itself. It's what you do with it. If left unchecked, it can turn into resentment. It can distort how you see others. It can make you focus more on what others have, than what you are building. But jealousy can also be a signal. It can show you what you value, what you desire, what you feel you are missing. When you shift your perspective, jealousy becomes information instead of negativity. Instead of asking, why them? You begin to ask, what can I learn from this? And that shift transforms jealousy from something destructive into something useful. Anger is one of the most powerful emotions the human mind can produce. It rises quickly. It demands attention. And if not understood, it can take control. Most people see anger as something negative, something to suppress or avoid. But anger itself is not the problem. It is a signal. A signal that something feels wrong. A boundary has been crossed. An expectation has been violated. Or a need has not been met. In its controlled form, anger can be useful. It can push you to take action. To defend yourself. To stand up for what matters. But when anger becomes uncontrolled, it shifts into aggression. And this is where the damage begins. Aggression often comes from a lack of awareness. The reaction happens faster than reflection. Words are said that cannot be taken back. Actions are taken that create regret. What makes anger dangerous is not its intensity, but its direction. When you react without understanding why you are angry, you lose control. But when you pause and observe the emotion, something changes. You create space between feeling and action. And in that space, you gain choice. You can respond instead of react. Because anger is not something you eliminate. It is something you learn to direct. Manipulation is often seen as something only certain people do. But in reality, it exists in subtle forms throughout everyday life. At its core, manipulation is the attempt to influence someone's behavior or decisions, often without them fully realizing it. Sometimes it is obvious. Other times, it is extremely subtle. It can appear as guilt, as pressure, as emotional withdrawal, as carefully chosen words designed to guide a response. People manipulate for different reasons. To gain control. To avoid conflict. To get what they want without direct confrontation. And often, they are not even fully aware they are doing it. This is what makes it complex. Because manipulation is not always intentional. It can be learned behavior. A pattern developed over time. Understanding manipulation is not about becoming suspicious of everyone. It is about recognizing influence. Noticing when your decisions are being shaped by emotional pressure rather than clarity. And also reflecting on your own behavior. Because awareness works both ways. The more you understand these patterns, the less control they have over you. And the more honest your interactions become. At a deep psychological level, many human behaviors are driven by one hidden force. The need for control. People want to feel in control of their environment, their relationships, and their outcomes. It creates a sense of safety. But when that sense of control feels threatened, behavior begins to change. Some people become more dominant. They try to control conversations, decisions, or even how others think. Others react differently. They withdraw, avoid, or shut down emotionally. Both reactions come from the same place. Insecurity. Control is often not about power. It is about fear. The fear of uncertainty. The fear of losing something important. The fear of not being enough. When someone tries to control everything around them, it is often because they feel unstable within themselves. Understanding this changes how you interpret behavior. You stop seeing control as strength. And you begin to recognize it as a coping mechanism. This awareness also applies to you. When you feel the urge to control every outcome, every detail, every situation, pause. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of losing right now? Because behind the need for control, there is always something deeper. And when you understand that, you begin to respond with awareness instead of reaction. Fear is one of the most powerful forces shaping human behavior. But it rarely appears in obvious ways. Instead, it hides behind avoidance. You tell yourself you'll do something later. You delay starting. You distract yourself with easier tasks. And it feels like procrastination. But beneath it, there is often fear. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear of not meeting expectations. Your brain is trying to protect you. It sees the situation as a potential threat. And instead of pushing you forward, it pulls you away. Avoidance becomes the strategy. In the short term, it reduces discomfort. But in the long term, it creates frustration. Because the problem never disappears. It grows. Understanding this pattern is powerful. Because it shifts your perspective. You stop asking, why am I so unmotivated? And you start asking, what am I afraid of? That question reveals the truth behind the behavior. And once the fear is identified, it becomes easier to face. Because fear loses strength when it is seen clearly. Avoidance is not weakness. It is protection. But real growth begins when you move toward what you fear, instead of away from it. One of the most confusing aspects of human behavior is self-sabotage. Why would someone work toward something, and then unconsciously destroy their own progress? The answer lies in the conflict between desire and belief. You may want success. But if a part of you believes you are not capable, or not deserving, your behavior will reflect that belief. This creates internal resistance. You delay. You make mistakes. You lose focus at critical moments. Not because you want to fail, but because your mind is trying to stay consistent with your identity. The brain prefers familiarity over uncertainty. Even if that familiarity is limiting. Success can feel unfamiliar. And unfamiliarity can feel unsafe. So the mind pulls you back to what it knows. This is self-sabotage. Not as a conscious choice, but as a psychological pattern. Breaking this pattern requires awareness. You must notice when your actions do not align with your goals. And instead of judging yourself, you question it. What belief is driving this behavior? When you identify the belief, you gain the ability to change it. Because behavior follows identity. And when identity evolves, so does your action. Every person wears a mask. Not in a deceptive way, but as a social necessity. The mask is the version of yourself you present to the world. The confident version. The calm version. The version that fits expectations. But behind that mask, there is a more complex reality. Emotions you don't show. Thoughts you don't express. Reactions you hold back. This is not dishonesty. It is adaptation. Humans adjust their behavior depending on the situation. At work, you behave one way. With friends, another. Alone, another. The problem arises when the gap between the mask and the true self becomes too large. When you constantly suppress what you feel, you begin to disconnect from yourself. You perform instead of express. And over time, this creates internal tension. Understanding this helps you see others more clearly. When someone appears overly perfect or controlled, it may not be authenticity. It may be a carefully maintained mask. The goal is not to remove the mask entirely. It is to be aware of it. Because the more aware you are, the more honest your behavior becomes. The dark side of human behavior is not something to fear. It is something to understand. Because the truth is, these patterns exist in everyone. Jealousy, anger, fear, control, self-doubt. Ignoring them does not make them disappear. It only gives them more influence. But awareness changes everything. When you become aware of your patterns, you create distance between impulse and action. You begin to notice your reactions in real time. You pause. You reflect. You choose. This is where control begins. Mastery is not about eliminating your dark side. It is about integrating it. Understanding where it comes from. And deciding how you respond to it. Because your thoughts may be automatic. But your actions are a choice. And the more aware you become, the more intentional your behavior becomes. In the end, the goal is not perfection. It is awareness. Because awareness is what turns unconscious patterns into conscious decisions. And that is where real power lies. There is a part of you that you don't fully understand. A part that reacts before you think. A part that feels things you don't always admit. And for most people, that part stays hidden. Ignored. Unquestioned. But here's the truth. You cannot control what you refuse to see. The dark side of your behavior is not your enemy. It is a signal. A reflection of your fears, your instincts, your conditioning. And when you become aware of it, you take back control. So if you want to master yourself, start here. First, observe your reactions. Notice when you feel anger, jealousy, or fear. Don't suppress it. Study it. Second, question the source. Ask yourself, why did I react this way? Every reaction has a root. Third, pause before action. Create space between what you feel and what you do. That space is power. Fourth, accept, don't deny. The more you resist your dark side, the stronger it becomes. Awareness weakens it. And finally, choose consciously. Because you are not your impulses. You are the one who decides what to do with them. If this opened your eyes to the hidden side of human behavior, subscribe to Growth Mindset Lab. Because the more you understand yourself, the less control your unconscious has over you. And the more powerful your life becomes.